Hello, my name is Matt Whitman. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast, and I am about to say some things that some of you are going to strongly disagree with, and I think we're going to be okay. Full disclosure, I am not persuaded that there's a list out there in English of 7 or 10 or 20 words that at their core are somehow just rotten and evil, and there's no context in which those words should ever be uttered. They are anathema, and somehow they bear a property, almost a magical, supernatural property that makes them just prohibitively evil in all circumstances and should never, ever be said, like the dark speech of Middle-earth that Tolkien talked about. Now, I don't think it's like that. I think with words, there's some contextualization that happens, and some words are such sharp, delicate instruments that to even pick one up to wield it, unless it's in the hands of a master, you're more likely to cut yourself and others with that word than you are to cut cleverly into whatever subject matter you wanted to talk about. So that's how we teach our kids. That might be the part that you disagree with me on. In terms of the swears and the forbidden words, we have not instilled in them that certain words are just forbidden and bad. We've instilled in them, you're not ready. We're not going to go around judging other adults who use words that we might not use or that we don't want you to use. But the reality is you've just got a lot of training yet to go before you have the sophistication and the skill to even think about picking up one of those words because they're just too sharp. The point of me saying that was not to persuade you that you should live or parent or talk. I don't know, just knock yourself out. I'm sure you're doing great on all of that stuff. The point was to liken the sharpness of certain words and how we all know that certain words are riskier to employ than other certain words. I wanted to liken that to the rule of King Xerxes. There's certain authority figures who just being around them doesn't feel that risky, right? They're not volatile. They're not mercurial. They don't just erupt over nothing. There's a levelness and a stability to them. And sometimes being in close proximity to power isn't terribly risky. I mean, I think it's probably always riskier than being a long ways away from power, where you're just less likely to have an unfortunate interaction. But certainly there are some courts of some kings, of some CEOs, of some presidents, senators, whatever, people who wield power, where the volatility of the main person in the room makes it a very dangerous room to be in. And maybe some people imagine that they can be in proximity to such a power figure and that they can wield that power figure and point them in the right direction. But the reality is you're just as likely to get cut by it as you are to do a certain amount of cutting with it. I think that's the kind of thing that we are seeing with Xerxes. This guy's a sharp instrument, and people feel like they can wield him and point him in certain directions. And the instability and the insecurities that we see out of Xerxes as presented in Esther chapter 1 and as presented by Herodotus in his histories both paint a picture of a guy who is risky to even be around. We just finished the prologue in Esther. Esther chapter 1 sets up the whole story. It introduces us to the main decision-making character and the pressures that affect him. It introduces us to his world and what the feel and tone of that place are like. And I think we come away clearly observing three things from this prologue. One, as I've been talking about all day here so far, it's a very dangerous place. It looks all pretty and nice, like that Casino Royale place in that James Bond movie. Everyone's dressed so nicely. Everyone has little clinky glasses that have little umbrellas or olives or whatever. Everybody has pretty jewelry and makeup. Everybody looks so sophisticated. Everything is clean, immaculate. But in the dark hallways, in the seedy underbelly, you see, this is not what it looks like. This setting has teeth. That cat has claws. And Xerxes' lovely, idyllic Susa, where everybody just parties and has fun, is not what it seems. It's a dangerous place, and that danger is first and foremost a product of the character weaknesses of the guy who's in charge of the whole thing. That's detail number one that I see coming out of this prologue. Theme or detail number two is this idea of access. This is a bigger deal than you or I think of. We live in an age without kings, and maybe we can imagine you buddying up to the boss at work or even calling in a political favor from somebody you might know in the city council or whatever. Maybe we can picture that kind of stuff. This still goes on, obviously. But the idea of just this unapologetic, central, absolute monarch who is the decider of everything on earth, except for a few things like out on the far western part of Greece and a few things unknown to them in the far east off in ancient China or something like that. Everywhere else, this guy's the decider. He's the decider of all of the things, and access to him is a commodity to be treasured, and anything that is of exceptional value is going to be heavily regulated, especially the closer you get to the seat of power. Well, here, access to the seat of power is the commodity in question, and the seat of power is, well, it's right there in the seat of power. So in order to even deal with the question of access, you're dealing in this heavily regulated environment right next to the seat of power, which takes us back to that danger theme. This is dangerous. We're playing a high-stakes Game of Thrones here with access to the king and taking the chance on manipulating him and having him like your presence and like your words. And if he feels good about it or he's had enough to drink, maybe he goes along with your stupid idea like he did in the case of the advice of Memucan. Or if your advice doesn't go over well with the king, as is the case in the event described by Herodotus at the same party we're looking at in Esther chapter 1 with Artabanos, then the king just goes nuclear and crazy things happen and they're directed at you. So the danger and the access themes go hand in hand, but all of that adds up to a third theme, which is influence. You can have influence over this king. He's exploitable. He's vulnerable. He has the right batch of weaknesses and vulnerabilities and insecurities that if you're smart at all, and if you can just get in front of him to talk, you could work him over in ways that could alter history. And it's that cocktail, it's that set of circumstances and personalities and pressures from beyond the age of Xerxes, inherited by Xerxes, coupled with the quirks that Xerxes himself brings to the table. It's all of that swirling together in that clinking cocktail that adds up to the set of circumstances that provides us with the drama of the story of the book of Esther, where indeed the great fate of an entire people group, even the whole world, is in play. And Xerxes never even really catches on that that's what's going on and that those are the kind of decisions he's making. Drama, drama, drama. I just love it. On to chapter 2. Next time around, I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast. Let's do this again soon.